live from Silicon Valley, Mr. Tony Leng.
Hello again. We're here at the end of the day. Come on, panel. I'm not doing this by myself. Please come up here. You don't have to sit in order. Sit wherever you like. Where's Steve? Oh, there he is. Okay. So while we wait for Steve, let me give you the setup and let me give you the roadmap of what we're going to talk about. So,
how you doing, buddy?
The purpose of every company is to find and keep customers. That's what it's all about. That's what we're going to talk about. Technology has enabled organizations to do this in new and interesting ways. We've got data. People have spoken a lot about data, all the uses of data, all the cool stuff we can do with data. Digital, there's mobile, there's all kinds of amazing new technologies that really allow businesses to find and keep customers in new and exciting ways. What we're going to talk about today is, what have your businesses, and from your various perspectives, what have you done through the introduction of technology and the cultural change that needs to go along to allow its adaptation? What have you done successfully? But round two, tell me where it's completely screwed up and gone wrong. So we want two stories, where it's good, but almost more importantly, where it's bad. What did you learn? What can you share with everybody else about what to watch out for with respect to those pitfalls? So we're going to do round one, then round two. Round one will start with you telling us who you are, where you work, your good story, and then you'll pass it on to Sigal and we'll go all the way down. Round two, and this is where you're going to be open, you're going to be vulnerable, you're going to be authentic, you're going to talk about the monster screw-ups you've been involved with and where it went wrong and how you made it go wrong, but more importantly what you learned and what you learned about the culture and the people, because that's what normally messes it up. Okay, starting with you, Rafail. Off you go.
I think I can follow these directions. We do 2 rounds, good story, and then I pass it on to Sigal, then we finish, and then it comes back to me again in a bad story.
Exactly right.
Let's see if we can follow this.
But a big screw up. I don't have a big screw up. So that's a problem. So you have time to think about it.
And sometimes I look back and my whole career is like one big screw up.
So that's your story.
That's right. My name is Raf Portnoy. I'm a Chief Technology Officer of the MTA. I've been with the MTA. I'm now in my 3rd year. I started there on January 31st of 2020. I have great plans, and then March 13th, everybody knows what happened. The interesting story about the culture change at the MTA, and I think we're going to connect the two together. I think it's the same story that has both the elements of success and some areas of improvement. We've discussed over many, many years. The life of the CTO or CIO is very easy if you focus on technology. And that's not what we get hired for, right? We get hired to really become the agents of change and to bring the cultural change to the organization. Recently, last week, we had a big outing for my executive team where we're looking into 2022 and 2023, solidifying the strategic plan because the past 2 years, we've been dealing with COVID. And one of the stories that I shared with my team is I followed the conflict in Ukraine very, very closely. For obvious reasons, because we're being attacked by nation states, but also because my family is originally from Ukraine. It's very dear to my heart. It's I visited a number of places there. And what we're observing is an interesting phenomena where a substantially smaller but professionally trained army in Ukraine is going and winning in a battlefield against the substantially larger forces from Russian Federation. And if you go and study and really understand how it's happening, and I'm going to bring it back to the to the cultural change we're instilling at the MTA, what's happening, and I learned about this, I have to say, many, many years ago on my first trip to Israel when I read the book that's called Startup Nation. If you haven't read it, read it. The way Ukrainian army operates is every single person understands the mission. It's not a command and control structure. It's the structure of everybody knows what needs to get done, and then it's completely decentralized. As opposed to the Russian army that tells their soldiers, you have to go from point A to point B. When you get there, wait for us, and we'll figure something out. So for us at the MTA, the journey started with a lot of changes. We're going to do cultural things, and what we have started doing is implementing an agile methodology, which allows us to break down the command and control structure to the individual elements of dealing with the customers. And we've had, I'll be perfectly honest with you, we've had phenomenal success that even in front of my eyes, things have gone better than I expected. And if you follow the news, the MTA, first organization, I want to say probably, if not in the world, maybe certainly in North America, we started releasing digital applications for railroads and our commuter trains, Long Island Railroad, Metro North, and because our management, I will not say this was my idea because it wasn't, but the management of the MTA understood that digital disruption is what's going to help us bring those commuters back to the system. So that's a great success. We've been doing this early on. We said we're not going to create a command and control structure. It's not going to work for us. But rather, if we implement agile methodology, and we're still in our journey, that's going to help us go and change the culture and win those customers and bring them back. So that's my good story. I'm following the logic. It's up to you, Sigal.
Sigal, over to you.
So, Sigal Zarmi, I'm a senior advisor to Morgan Stanley and also a board member for a few tech companies. And before transitioning into this new chapter in my life, I was head of transformation and international CIO at Morgan Stanley. So my example will be from Morgan Stanley, a good example, specifically around customers. So we have been using AI/ML in the wealth management business in order to analyze the data that we have. And Morgan Stanley has 15,000 financial advisors. That's before getting E-Trade, which is all about online trading. And the data, and now we have the E-Trade data feeding into that application as well. And that data showing the financial advisors what is the next best action for them to reach out to clients with. So it's all about client engagement. It's all about being involved in the client's life and understanding based on life stages, how do you reach out to the clients. And if you've been following Morgan Stanley over the last 2 years, you'll know that the wealth management business has grown and been very successful from net assets under management and from margin perspective as well. And a piece of it is attributed to the next best action. And one of the things that technology helped is bringing in machine learning algorithm in order to understand what can you do with the data that you have and what can you reach out to clients with. Came out very handy during the pandemic when the market went down. If you remember, the Dow, I think at one point was at 18,000, I think. And clients were very nervous about what to do with their portfolio. And we had the next best action that really helped financial advisors to talk to their clients.
Stu.
Successes are easy. There's not many of the hard one's going to be which one do I choose for the failures. So hi, I'm Stu Kippelman again. Nice to see you all. I'm the CIO of Parsons Corporation, and I'm going to try to go in a little different direction just to mix things up. So I'm going to talk about communications. So one of the most important things that IT does, whether it's the technology or the solutions or however you want to look at what IT does for the company, communications is a critical part of it. And we have to communicate clearly and frequently without making people crazy. And then the company relies on us to help them with both internal and external communications using technology, right? So eventually you do get to touch a piece of technology in these conversations. So When I joined 3 years ago, my experience was in the traditional communication technologies related to, intranet sites and extranet sites and, all the portals and things that we create, whether it's SharePoint for sharing or whatever your flavor of technology is, it doesn't really make a difference, right? So there's this internal need to share and communicate. Now, in my career, I would say that those have always been moderately successful platforms. I mean, I believe the amount of people that go to the internet site's pretty low, unless it's a click-through to something else, right? Maybe their expense reporting system is through the portal, but so we wanted to really reinvent how we communicate as a company. And this is not any kind of product endorsement whatsoever, but it's fundamental to the discussion. I remind myself of the analogy that CIO means career is over, right? And so the 3 or 4 different proposals that I had given the leadership team were pretty traditional. They were better intranets and faster and easier to use and better content creation and, the things that we all think about for how to improve a platform. And they all said, Stu, that's not really different enough. We want to really be different. So took a little homework and rethinking through career is over a lot in this research, but we eventually proposed Facebook Workplace, and they loved it. And we were like, crap, they really went for this. And we rolled out Facebook Workplace, and in the first week, we had a 89% adoption rate, right? Have you ever heard of 89% adoption of anything, right? No. And the hypothetical case worked, that everyone knew it. It really is the same thing as Facebook, right? With the interface. So, whether you like Facebook or not, the majority of people don't have to be trained how to use Facebook. They just go in and do it. It is a separate platform in case anybody's interested. So it has all the SOC certifications, and we really own the data. It's not Facebook. There's no marketing or any kind of that kind of stuff going on. So, and you pay good money for that, by the way. But the adoption was incredible, and people loved it. It's 3 years later, and our adoption rate's above 80% on average user basis. And there's other stories involved.
Have you tracked the business value of that?
Yeah, we have, right? So then obviously that's hard to define because every company is going to look at value and metrics differently. We look at it as active daily users, meaning not some how many people have an account. That's one, and that's what I'm using for 89%. People logged in and created an account. But we see above 60% daily usage rate. Now, I do not know offhand, are they in for a minute or an hour, but we have all that. There's a really deep metric.
Did your engagement scores go up as a result of this or not?
They did. As a matter of fact, none of us could believe it. we were, I was sweating a little bit when some of the first numbers came out, but we couldn't believe the adoption rate. And as a matter of fact, we completely decommissioned all other intranet sites. So we have one intranet site that we call PWeb, Parsons Web, that is pretty much links. It used to be the homepage of everything. Now what we do is we put the workplace newsfeed on that site. So it really did change around. We really did see the lack of need for the traditional sites. Cool. The caveat there is you have to have a culture that is willing to do it. It won't work without it. I mean, we had a number of employees who would say, I don't have Facebook in my personal life. They stink. I'm being nice. And I'm not going to do it at work. And my answer, of course they came to me, right? Of course. My answer was this, we don't make you use Outlook, but you're going to be a lot less successful in your job if you didn't. It's your choice. It is the only place that we communicate.
Yeah, we had a similar experience with Teams. When the COVID started, the adoption was terrible. And I just started, this was 6 weeks into it. I'm looking at the infrastructure. We are coming up with the tchotchkes to give out just for them to start using this. And when the COVID hit, and not many people know, among operating agencies, we also have construction and development at the MTA. I mean, you know, because you work with us. But it's the largest construction company in the world. So you're talking about people who literally go on the construction site. And we've seen, because of COVID and because of the conditions in the marketplace, the adoption just went up through the roof to the numbers that you're sharing. So
Okay, Steve, your turn. And I don't want to lose time on the bad stuff.
Look at that.
So get on with the good stuff, because we want to concentrate on the bad stuff.
So I'm inherently optimistic, so it's all good. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Steve Fernandez. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for AIG. So I'm in the insurance business, and historically, we are not the fastest paced company to move to new technologies and to take great risk. And I think where digital is getting really interesting is I've never met a company, whether it's small, mid-size, or enterprise, that says, I don't want to be digital. Everybody says it, right? It's you have to be, but what does that mean? And there's a very, very large spectrum of what that means. And I think the most important thing that we did in AIG, and this started about when I joined the company 2 years ago, is we had a mandate from our CEO that said, I need to change the way our business runs to be more responsive to customer needs. It had nothing to do with technology. It was just a general mission statement, and we had to be closer to what our company needs. And it was at this point where I, as a tech leader, was allowed to say, to do this, we have to be in the cloud, we have to be agile, we have to be nimble. And so I would say the most positive thing that myself as a tech leader brought to the enterprise was the need for urgency in the crisis to change our internal technology suite to meet what the business and the board really wanted to do. And it's very difficult for people to have aspirations of how they want to change their business, but if the underlying foundations aren't there, it's impossible to achieve. So as a leader, right, I think what I bring to the business is, one, a little bit of know-how, but two, that urgency, and that we are in a crisis, and if you don't make the change, we'll be outdated. You won't be able to compete in the marketplace with rivals and peers. So that to me was a positive, even though it came out of a sense of urgency.
So Steve, if you've created the burning platform, were there people that didn't want to change because you're in an old traditional company? And how do you get them to jump off the burning platform instead of being burned alive?
Yeah, so I mean, we not only had people, we had countries that didn't want to change. So basically, I did kind of the burning platform methodology. So when we started the positioning, we were at about 85% on premises and 15% in the cloud, and mostly in SaaS applications. And I said within 2 years, we will be 85% in the cloud and 15%. And if your business doesn't move, we stop supporting you. So and we had that kind of support from the business leadership to enable that. And with that, the true transition. So within 2 years, we'll have that 85 to 85 juxtaposition of on-prem to cloud. And that really moves the needle in terms of what your business can and can't do.
And I suspect I know where the mess-ups are going to come in a second as you tell that story. But over to you.
Sure.
So now I'm looking. Do you understand what I'm wanting?
I know, I'm going to try. So, when we...
And if you don't, I'll
I
call
know,
you.
you're going to come back and kick me. So, look, when we discuss, and this is the IT crowd, so we can use the words that usually don't resonate with the customers well, because agile means, as we talk about this, agile, cloud. I had an executive once when we started talking to her about cloud computing. She said, well, and we use the word cloud. She said, what cloud are you talking about? I see them all the time outside of my window. And you have to go through the educational experience. But when we discuss cloud, when we discuss agile and we discuss organizational transformation, it's not about IT. This is what a lot of people don't really get. The whole transformation to agile, it's the culture change to convince the business that it is in their advantage to do things differently, right? So you start following that model, you go to somebody, and MTA, you know, look, we run trains, we fix track, so going to somebody who's a chief engineer whose career was changing the track on a railroad, this is the discussion you have to figure out how to have. So and this is the second time I'm doing agile transformation, so I don't want to say that I'm making the same mistakes. It's a little bit different, but you start following the model. And for us, one of the big screw-ups at the MTA, well, it recently happened, is we have a customer communication group that's responsible for the writing public. By the way, if you don't have AMI installed on your phone, install it now. Don't leave this room until you get it. And I will tell you that you all must start using public transportation today. Leave your car in the city, get on the subway, get home using one of the railroads. We need the city back. So one of the groups that we wanted to transform was the customer communication group, which uses the ancient antiquated system, which we're replacing with Salesforce, blah, blah, blah. So we tried a number of times go in and say, we're going to sit down with you. We're going to talk to you about orchestration, and we're going to talk to you about daily huddles and this and that. And the executive, she kept coming back and saying, guys, I need you to start doing QA. I need you to start helping with this. We said, yeah, whatever. Listen to us. It's going to be great. We need to start doing orchestration. We need to start doing daily huddles. You're going to do phenomenal things. Assign your people every Friday morning. And she's like, no. We need QA people. We need to launch this product. She's like, you don't know what you're talking. Eventually, it obviously blew up in our face. And I think that the idea here is that we have to serve the business. The digital transformation starts by active listening and saying, you know what, agile in her mind is different. We have to do what she says, not the other way around. It's upon us to go change the way we communicate and deal with our customers. It was a big deal, right? It took a little bit of time for us to sit down with the team and say, we're not listening. We're trying to force something onto her that's not going to work. So we're better off change our tactics so we can accomplish what we need to accomplish. So let's start.
And Sigal, as the head of transformation, I'm sure you had something that went wrong somewhere, and we'd like to learn from your experience.
Yeah, I'll give you a different experience.
Okay.
Before Morgan Stanley, I was the global CIO at PwC. So I'll give you an example from that because I think I'll pick on what you said, which is creating the burning platform. And the hardest thing about being a change agent is that when there is no burning platform. When the business is doing well and people don't really realize why they need to change, but you know as a technologist that you must change because of the purpose, because you need to engage with customers, because you need to bring in new revenue, because the systems are end of life, because you know that you won't be able to attract the right talent to support the existing landscape of applications and infrastructure, and you need to change. And when the business is not willing to do that, that's hard. So when I joined PwC in 2014, believe it or not, they were still using Lotus Notes. And Lotus Notes would not have carried them through the pandemic, for sure. That was definitely not the right technology. And we signed up with Google's G Suite in 2014 and trying to roll out Google G Suite across 157 countries and 275,000 people was a big change project. It was not about the technology, because as you all know, you can within 5 seconds get on Gmail, right, and you have an account. But to convince each and every partnership in 157 countries to get on with Google G Suite and give up their Lotus Notes as an email system was a huge change management and transformational project. Now, of course, now in hindsight, they're happy they did that because, again, the pandemic and people working from home. But part of I would say, the fact that it took about 3.5 years, and it should have taken probably 18 months to do that conversion.
So what did you learn, and what would you do differently for everyone here?
I'm getting there. I would actually maybe take a page from what you were saying around creating the burning platform and explaining to business leaders what it really means. And each country had their own reason as to why. So instead of generalizing and going about Europe as if it was everybody the same, or Asia, which there are so many countries there, and looking at all of them and grouping them and using the same strategy, trying to be more customized around how you roll things out for each and every country, and trying to create that burning platform for each and every one of them differently than what we did in the US or in the UK. That would be the main thing.
Good. Stu.
Wow, I have a lot to pick from. All right, I'm just going to go to the worst that's ever happened. It was about 10 years ago, and I'm going to keep a really long story short, but we were going to roll out a new technology from the company that makes operating systems also, and we were the pilot. There were so many lessons from this. You'll start to figure it out. We were the pilot company, and we spent 2 years in development with them on this product. It was going to touch every single user's desktop, and the way that we provision software. And 30 days before go live, they decided they're going to cancel the product. And oh, sorry. Like, what do you mean? It was on a spreadsheet, and you guys all decided that, I may not make money on this after 2 years of development? Well, 2 years before that of developing, then 2 years working with us on development. And, is there a way to escalate that? Or because we have stupid amounts of money invested in this now, and, the answer was, no, sorry. So the lessons here, quickly, are don't overmarket something, because we gave out T-shirts, we made this, we branded this, life-altering, you'll never be the same after it's rolled out, and then all of a sudden it's gone. We didn't have a plan B. Today I have a plan B and a plan C for everything. Meaning, who would even imagine? Would you imagine that after that they would cancel something like that, like a month before we were going to go live? So don't oversell it. Don't over communicate it. Don't rely on a single vendor, no matter who they are. There should always be a plan B. And I can go on and on, but that's the story. And it took us years to recover from. Every time we would propose a project completely irrelevant to that, we'd get the, you're going to be able to deliver this one? And it's, we were like, it wasn't even us. Like, who could have imagined that? They didn't tell us. There wasn't like, hey, a potential risk of this not launching, just want to let you know. Yeah. It was just all of a sudden.
Yeah. Steve, what about you?
So pretty interesting negative, I guess. So I mentioned before we were going to this burning platform and went to a lot of steering committees, a lot of motivational talks about the cloud and what it's going to do for your businesses. And believe it or not, a lot of our CEOs and GMs around the world really got engaged and got excited about it, and they wanted to be part of this journey. Well, one thing that you find when you create this kind of enthusiasm or you kind of create this momentum is, first of all, everybody is a junior CTO in their brain. They've got a credit card, they know where Amazon is, and they're going to go, and it's pretty easy. So what we did inadvertently, because we created a wave of enthusiasm, we had a global program we were rolling out methodically and in an intelligent way, but a lot of the parts of the business were jumping ahead and decided to go to the cloud on their own, and they started to create their own instance structure, and they started doing things. And so I didn't look at that as necessarily pure negative. Now I had to go and clean it all up and bring it into our central CI/CD pipeline and a lot of other things that nobody cares about. But you can inadvertently create this enthusiasm, especially when you start hitting digital themes that people understand in concept, but they don't understand what that means to the enterprise. So the lesson learned I took from it is, look, I would rather have the problem of going and fixing things than having people who aren't inspired to kind of go along your vision to begin with. So it was a bit of a negative because I had to go do some rework and cleaning up, but at the end of the day, the business really coalesced around the vision, and it really helped us propel and move forward.
Was there anybody that just said, no, you know, you've given us 2 years, at the end of 2 years, you stopped supporting them? Did anybody fall into that category?
There are some countries that are very, very isolated and prefer to be isolated. So we have very hard discussions at the executive committee level of will they come on board or not. And honestly, you know, if they choose not to be part and our CEO says, look, you can be an isolated part of the business, I'll support that as well. But they're not part of the journey, so I don't think it'll end up that way. But there are 1 or 2 countries that are very, very independent, and it's interesting. And even to complexity nowadays is there are a lot of localization laws you have to deal with, a lot of regulation. So one size doesn't always fit, but I found most of the time the general global approach fits. It's just you have to work with the countries and the right areas going forward.
Everybody says, you don't understand my business, works differently.
Oh, it's unique. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody has a unique business.
Okay, we have 0 time, but we've got some really world-class people sitting up here. If anybody has any questions, please raise your hand and we'll give you a microphone. And if not, we will drink and raffle. That's the choice. So, any questions before we raffle and drink?
That's a tough choice.
Tough choice.
Let's raffle and drink.
Wonderful.
Great job, guys. How are you? Great job. Here you go.
For more information, please visit hmgstrategy.com and keep up to date by following us on our social media platforms. Thank you.